Good morning. Thank you for joining us for today's workshop, Personal Branding. My name is Shante Rivers. I am the Senior Relationship Manager and Career Consultant for Towson University Continuing and Professional Studies team. I'm thrilled to partner with the TU Career Center today. Shortly, I will introduce to you Marcy Lightfoot. But before I do, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we do at Continuing and Professional Studies. Many of you on this call today may be familiar with some of our offerings, so I won't take up too much time. We offer live instructor-led courses, as well as self-paced options that are flexible and that can fit into your busy schedules. Every course is designed to help you meet your career goals. Our team provides 360-degree support, and what that means is everything from helping you to select the right course, to adding you to the learning management system, ensuring you receive the materials for the course, and checking on you while you are in the course to make sure you feel fully supported. Many of our students are eligible for discounts. Right now, most of our instructor-led courses are eligible for a significant discount. Some of those courses include Project Management Professional, Professional in Human Resources, and Certified Medical Coding. Some of our popular self-paced courses are Online Medical Billing, Online Certified Clinical Medical Assistant, Online Electric Health Record Specialist, Online Pharmacy Technician, and several online CompTIA courses. Feel free to reach out to me at crivers@towson.edu. I'm happy to field your questions and discuss your career goals. At this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to Marcy from our Career Center. During the presentation, please use the chat functionality to submit questions, and we'll get to a few of those questions at the end of the presentation. Welcome, Marcy. Good morning, Marcy. Welcome.
Good morning. It's great to be here. It's so nice to be able to talk about a topic which I think is just very interesting and certainly very relevant. So I'm going to talk about personal branding, and let me just make sure I can share my screen and that we're good to go there. I think with that, hopefully that's showing and everybody can see that. So the topic today that I'm going to talk about is specifically personal branding. And I like that definition that's kind of pictured there, the concept of how we see ourselves and how others see us, and kind of where that blend is in the middle. So I think that's a really good visual to demonstrate what personal branding is. So as you think about personal branding, I just want you to think about what comes to mind when I show these images, because we know that companies are doing personal branding as well. So I'm just going to click through them and just think in your mind some of the first things that come to mind as you see these visuals. That is how the company has chosen to brand themselves, and hopefully the image that it's creating in your mind. Obviously, two very different brands, and obviously two very different branding strategies. We know that also organizations do branding. And Towson University, of course, has recently rebranded. For those of you who might not have remembered that, they have a new logo that we are now using. And there was a process involved in trying to figure out what kind of logo would present the image that Towson University was looking to project to others as they would see the logo, but also based on what individuals' experiences have been at Towson, whether they were alums or current students. And celebrities do it. So again, I want you to just think of what might come to mind as you see these two images. And again, very different ways in which they've chosen to brand themselves, but just thinking about, what comes to your mind as you think through how they are trying to project themselves. What is their public image? What do you think of them? Okay, so now we're going to get into a little bit about personal branding for us as individuals. So I want to just read these two sort of definitions of personal branding because I really like them. The first one is the intentional effort to promote yourself in a way that establishes credibility and builds authority. Kind of the two key components of that are the credibility piece and also the authority piece. So we want to make sure when we talk about credibility that our brand is consistent throughout the way we live our lives and the way people see us, because that is going to help us build our credibility. So it also includes the impression that others have of us based on the way they interact with us, based on our experiences, our knowledge base, our personality, and even the reputation that precedes us. The other thing that I really want to mention here is that we've heard time and time again from employers and other individuals when they talk about the concept of personal branding, it is often how you make somebody feel. So it's not always just everything that's on the list of your resume or all of your accomplishments. A lot of it is how you make people feel. And that's what you want to create in another person, a feeling that establishes your expertise in a particular area, or again, your credibility on a particular subject matter. But you want it, again, to be consistent. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how to do that and some ways to create your personal brand. So first of all, it's really kind of important to think about, what do you want people to think of you and what do you want to be known for? And so I watched a webinar recently that asked the question, sit down and think about, what do others think of you? And maybe write down some things that you feel that you think others think and believe about you when they meet you, or people that have known you for a while, and see if that's consistent with the way that you really do want them to see you. So one way you can really think about how you want them to see you is to think about doing a self-audit or doing assessments. We have some good assessments on the Career Center website. You can just type in assessments in the Towson search bar to find some of those. But some of the questions that you can ask yourself are things like, what am I really good at? What motivates me to do my best? What things do I value? And what goals do I have for myself? So these are some great questions to sit down and ask yourself as you think about how you want to brand yourself. What is the image that you want to present to other people that really represents the true and authentic piece of you that you want to share with others? So a couple of things. I want you to think about how you're going to prepare to share your personal brand with others, and think about the process that you might have to go through before you even get to what comes next. So I want you to think about your story. And I like the idea of thinking about letting people know who you are, again, your value, but also your talents, your skills, your accomplishments. So when you talk about your value, the way that you're going to establish your credibility is by connecting it to your experiences and to your accomplishments. And these all together are going to put together a compelling story of who you are. So for example, maybe one of your experiences growing up is that you were a child of military parents and you had to be very adaptable growing up because maybe your parents moved 5 or 6 times during your childhood. That's a part of your story. That's a part of what makes you who you are. And it also has given you the opportunity to develop a very marketable skill to employers and to others. So that's an example of weaving that into your story that actually then includes a value to others. My adaptability, but it comes from a part of your story that maybe was a part of your childhood. So think about how those things can be woven in when we share our story and share our value to others. So I want to think about creating your 30-second commercial, because this is one way that we are going to actually brand ourselves. We all know that this is pretty much the same thing as an elevator pitch. The idea is that you could give this to somebody in an elevator. That's the whole concept behind it. That's why it's typically short. And if you had only a few minutes or a few seconds, really, even 1 minute, to have a conversation with somebody, what would you tell them about you? How do you want to be remembered? And what are the points that you want to get across? So again, you want to position yourself to talk about your most marketable skills when you're in this situation. And so it should also include, again, a little bit of your background, as I just mentioned, your strengths, some of the major things that you accomplished, and it can also include some of your goals. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the 30-second commercial because we want to focus on 2 aspects. We want to focus on the content piece, which is the information you're going to share, but we also want to focus on the delivery. because your delivery is going to be important as well. Because remember when I mentioned that it's how you make people feel? A lot of that isn't just what you say. It has to do with your body language and how you're presenting yourself and how you're coming across to people. And so that is going to come through oftentimes through your body language and how you actually deliver the information. So let's talk about content first. So again, this is short. This is if you only have a few seconds. Let's say you're going to the career fair and you know you're only going to have a few seconds to have a conversation with an employer, or you're going to an event where you know you're going to have to be working around the room and not having long conversations with people. So you want this to be brief, but to give people a summary of you, information about you that they can take away from a very short conversation. So again, sharing your skills and your strengths, and going back to that assessment, that's where you're gonna, when you go through those things and you think about your strengths and your skill sets and how they're gonna be marketable to others, that's kind of what you wanna think about as you're developing the content piece of your 30-second commercial. Also mentioning your goals, letting somebody know that eventually you hope to own your own business, or that you would really like to become a CEO of a company one day. You can include those things. They might be longer term goals. They might be shorter term goals. Maybe one of your goals is just to be in a position that allows you to use the skill sets that you have to the maximum, to be able to use to work to your potential. And so it doesn't have to be specific goals. They can be broader if you're not necessarily at the point where you know what those specific goals are. Also think about mentioning the personality characteristics that make you unique. I mentioned the situation before that if you've developed adaptability from something you did as a child, for example, maybe sometimes a person might be a student athlete, so they may not have a lot of job experience to market to somebody or to brand themselves in a way that I have a lot of this unique work experience. But when you think about the things and the traits that you gain through being an athlete, you have to have excellent time management skills. You have to be able to work as a team. You have to be able to communicate. You may even have been a leader if you were held a leadership position on the team. So what are the things about you that make you unique? And you want these to be things that somebody's going to remember when they walk away from that conversation. So have you had a unique experiences that have brought out some of these personality traits or brought out some of these skill sets that will help somebody remember you when they leave the conversation? You also want to, if you have the opportunity, to develop the knowledge base of the company and the industry. So if you know that you are going into a situation where you're going to be delivering this, like to a certain employer, for example, you want to obviously to gain some knowledge about the company, but you can also demonstrate your knowledge about the industry in general. So if you know that there's certain trends in the industry, you can include that. I know that some of the platforms that are used in this business, and I'm familiar with these platforms. So it shows that you have the industry knowledge and the understanding. And then again, you can take that down to the company level if you know that you're going to be delivering this to somebody who is specific to a certain company, so that you are branding yourself in a way that they can see you as being somebody that is going to be of value within their particular organization. And you can also include the number of years of experience. So you might have experience, even though you may not be out of the work in the workforce for a long time, you may have started working and doing customer service positions when at a young age. So you may have 7 years of customer service experience, or you may have had the opportunity to do several internships as well as classroom projects. And so you have experience through your classroom situations in developing PR campaigns and advertising campaigns. So think about how you can quantify things, because that can sometimes be helpful when you're branding yourself as well. Then somebody can understand like the scope and the breadth of your knowledge base. I just want to mention something called the NACE Career Ready skills. These are actually skills that employers have said we want people coming out of college to have. And oftentimes employers feel like students can be lacking in these areas. These are some of the #1 things that employers tell us that they want to see. So NACE is the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and they developed this list. And everything from, again, problem solving to good communication, teamwork, leadership. And you want to think about what experiences you've had that have helped you to gain those things. So again, this could be through a job. This could be through something that you experience younger in your life. It could be through a club or organization, volunteer work, community service, anything like that, classwork. So if you can think about how to demonstrate that you've gained some of these skill sets as you develop your personal brand, there's going to be a strong value to an employer. The two top ones that they've listed are the critical thinking and problem solving and the communication skills. So those are very marketable skills. And if you believe that's part of your skill set, it would be great to include that in your personal brand, because they, again, are very, very marketable. But all of these things are important to employers, and weaving those into how you're presenting yourself to others and how you're telling your story. All right, let's talk a little bit about your delivery. Okay, so when you talk about thinking about sharing your elevator pitch with somebody or your 30-second commercial, you do want to practice it, but you also want it to be conversational. It shouldn't sound like it's memorized, and it also doesn't necessarily have to be verbatim. The other thing is that it will change depending on the situation. If you're networking with one person in one particular role or industry or some level in that industry, it might be different than if you're talking to a CEO as opposed to somebody that's just new in the field. So you do want it to be adaptable, but you also want to make sure you have your key points that you want to get across to somebody. We also want to remember not to talk too fast. A lot of us, if we're nervous, we speak too quickly, and that can be difficult for people to grasp what we're saying. And so they miss our points. And so just remember to pace yourself, slow yourself down, and just kind of take a breath as you're having this conversation with somebody and delivering your personal brand in an interpersonal situation like this. You also want to avoid rambling. That's why having your key points is really important. Again, not having it memorized verbatim, but what are the main things that I want somebody to take away from this conversation with me? How do I want them to remember me? What is the brand that I want to get across before they leave this conversation? And so have those main points. And then again, some of the things to back those up. Those are your experiences that we just talked about that you can incorporate and weave into saying, okay, I have good time management skills, and here's how I've gained them. You also want to smile. Smiling actually is contagious. They've done studies on this, and smiling is actually contagious. And when we smile, it releases endorphins in our brains, which makes us feel good. And if you remember, one of the things I just said was a lot of times when people talk about connecting with somebody, it's often how that person makes us feel. So we want to brand ourselves in a way that makes people feel good. And if we're smiling, chances are they're going to smile too, and it's going to make us both feel good. We also want to make eye contact. Eye contact is an important thing to establish our credibility, to establish connection with people, to establish our authority, our confidence. So making eye contact is a really important component. And I know that can be hard, of course, if we're actually doing something on a screen, but you just want to try to remember to look at the camera as much as possible. But if you're in person, you do want to make good eye contact with individuals. I know right now we're doing so much of our stuff virtually, but we know that the world is going to return to an in-person, more of an in-person version, hopefully soon. And utilizing some of these techniques in person is really, really effective. So when it's appropriate, we're also going to have a handshake. Usually when we do this, that physical contact with somebody also is a way of making a connection. And we also know that having a good handshake can exude confidence. And most of us want confidence to be part of our personal brand. And so, and to be able to deliver it in a way that shows I feel good about who I am and I feel good about what I have to offer. And so I want you to as well. So again, expressing that through some of your delivery piece, the body language piece is really crucial. And then if appropriate, and if you're in a situation where you can ask for business cards, that's a great way to do it too, and offer yours as well. That way people can remember you and you can remember others as you are sharing your brand with them and they're sharing their brand with you. And it's a great idea even to jot some notes down if you've met somebody on their card, if you want to reconnect with them later, to jot some notes down about that person. If you want to continue to have a relationship with them and reach out to them again later. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about sharing our personal brand. We know we're going to do it through our documents, resume, cover letter, and also things like a website, portfolio, if that's appropriate for your industry. And making sure these documents look good. Students or alums at TU can have this done at the Career Center, and that is a great opportunity to get these reviewed. but you can also ask somebody who's in the industry to take a look at them as well, to make sure that they're appropriate and you're branding yourself in a way that is going to make you marketable. You certainly are going to be doing this in an interview. And that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of personal story and having those examples. Chances are an employer is going to ask you, tell me about a time when you used teamwork. Tell me about a time when you solved a problem. And that's why, again, sharing those skill sets that are so important to employers, being able to brand yourself in a way that shows that you have those skill sets that an employer values often happens in an interview, and you're going to have examples to share and stories to tell. And so preparing those ahead of time can be really helpful to you as you're branding yourself through this particular situation. You also, of course, are going to do it while networking, which is what we just mentioned. Again, it could be in person or it could even be online. And then, we're going to be doing it on the job as we continue to work. If you're doing an internship, you want to try to meet as many people as possible. If you're in a company, learn what other functions are, because you never know when you might want to change roles within the organization. So continuing to express that brand, making it consistent as you meet with individuals in various situations in various places. And then definitely on social media. This is an important piece. So I'm going to talk about that for just a minute. It's important to clean up our social media. We hopefully all know that, but whatever you have out there that's public, anybody can take a look at, and that's one of the things they're going to do. An employer is going to want to see how you're branding yourself on social media. Your brand should also be consistent across platforms. Just like when you present yourself, you want to be consistent in all situations. You also want to be consistent in how you're presenting yourself on your social media. That's going to help to establish your credibility. You also want to know what platforms are most utilized in your industry and utilize those to brand yourself most successfully. And then LinkedIn is one of the best ones that we can use for professional connections. So I'm just going to talk about LinkedIn for a minute. I know we're getting close to time, but I want to just make sure that we have enough time to talk about LinkedIn, because it is one of the best professional tools and one of the best places that you can brand yourself extensively, and people can really see who you are. So a couple of quick things. Make sure that you're not including negative things in your social media, especially about a former employer. We also don't want to do things like gossiping. And we also want to think about how our content will be viewed by others. I've heard people say, think about how your grandmother would feel if she read that. So these are all important strategies when we think about what not to put on our social media or what not to do on our social media. Don't contradict yourself, because again, the consistency is a really important part of establishing the credibility of your brand. And we know that we don't have to accept all friend requests or all connections, because maybe sometimes that person is going to tag you on certain things, or they're going to be venting and you're going to be listed as one of their connections, and you don't necessarily want that yourself connected with that on your social media. So just be aware of who you're connecting with. It's also important to use social media to brand ourselves in a positive light. So employers have determined that there's a lot of ways that they will see you through your social media and the value that you can have through your social media. So your personality is one of the #1 things that can come across for your social media. And again, you want that as you brand yourself to come across in a positive light. What are the kinds of things this person is posting? What kinds of things are they liking? What kinds of communication are they making? How are their writing skills on their social media? So the communication skills, well-rounded, creative, being professional. So these are all things that employers are looking for, again, and how you can brand yourself through your social media. Just want to mention LinkedIn, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. Couple quick things. You want to use the various sections to showcase your skills and accomplishments. So these are everything from projects to volunteer work, to awards, to certificates. Make sure you use it extensively. It is like an extensive resume, much more that you can include on that document. Make sure you keep it updated, and make sure your social media, again, matches from platform to platform. You want to post engaging and relevant content, especially on LinkedIn, because it is a professional platform, and you want to think about what is going to be interesting to my people in my industry and what's going to be most relevant to them. Commenting on other people's posts is a great way to get people to look at you, to see who you are, and to brand yourself in a way that's of someone who's engaged and supporting others as well. You also want to connect with industry professionals, and there's a great alumni feature on LinkedIn that you can just search. If you go to the Towson page of LinkedIn, and there's an alumni tab that you can search for Towson alums on LinkedIn specifically, and connecting with them can be a great way of utilizing this platform as well. Also, you can brand yourself by asking for endorsements and recommendations for others to give you on LinkedIn. So you have all the skill sets that you're going to select for yourself, but that's great. That's you saying that's how I want to brand myself. But if other people are endorsing you or recommending you, that again only lends to the credibility of your brand. And you also want to join the industry groups and discussions, because again, people want to see that you're knowledgeable, you're up to date, you're following the trends of the industry that you're in. And finally, you can also use something called LinkedIn Learning. If some of you aren't aware of that, you actually go to Towson's page and you type in LinkedIn Learning, and you can access it free if you're a current student at Towson, and as long as you have an active TU address. LinkedIn Learning can help you to gain additional skill sets from any of the soft skill areas, also to many, many, many technical skills. So that's a great platform to expand your skill set and to brand yourself in a way that someone who learns new things, has a lot of skill sets and the capacity to go out and learn things on his or her own. So I know that was a lot of information to absorb in the short amount of time, and I do want to open it up to a few questions. I know we have a few minutes left. I hope maybe somebody does have questions, but I also want to mention the Towson Career Center. We are now in the union. We currently are working remotely, but we will be back in the middle of next week. We do have appointments you can make through Handshake, or you can also visit us for express hours to get that resume review or cover letter review. And I do encourage you, if you are a TU student or an alum, to utilize this service. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And I don't know if we have any questions at all in the chat. I will look to see. I'm not seeing anything at the moment. But if anybody does have any questions, I would love to answer them. If anybody has anything at the moment.
Thank you, Marcy. Yeah, I don't see any questions as well. Thank you again for that great presentation. As Marcy stated, if you have any questions, we do have a few minutes. You can send it through the chat. If not, you can email me at crivers@towson.edu, and I'll be happy to address those questions. If I don't have the answers, I'll reach out to Marcy. Again, Marcy, thank you so much for your time today. If we don't have anything else, then we will let everybody go. I'm happy to answer any questions about the presentation or discuss any career goals that you might have. Thank you again, Marcy. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And they're also able to reach out to me as well. It's just mlightfoot@towson.edu. And you can find me on the website. I'm listed as a career coach, and it's Marcy Lightfoot. And so if anybody's interested, feel free to reach out to me as well. I'm happy to work with anybody on any of these things, social media, networking, resume, whatever it might be that would be helpful.